Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Gopi Janavalabha Girivane Hari Valabha Girivane Hari Gopi Janavalabha Girivane Hari Yasodhanandana Brajagana Ranjana Nana Brajagana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajagana Ranjana Nana Brajagana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Jabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivane Hari Janavalabha Girivane Hari Gopi Janavalabha Girivane Hari Valabha Girivadadha Yasodanandana Brajagana Jana Sodanandana Brajagana Jana Yasodanandana Brajagana Jana Danandana Brajagana Jana Yasuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Bhagavacharya Satarya Satishishi Maharaj Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Gaura Vaishnavinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Sakoshi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki His confounder Srila Prabhupada Ki Shri Radha Krishna Gol Gopinath Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Navadvip Dham ki, Jamuna Maya ki, Ganga Maya ki, Tulsi Devi ki, Bhakta Devi ki, Shishi Radha Golokananda ki, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki, Gora Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. So we're continuing our reading of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 10, text 115. The three brothers, Govinda, Madhava, and Vasudeva, were the 82nd, 83rd, 84th branches of the tree. Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda used to dance in their kirtan performances. Purport. The three brothers, Govinda, Madhava, and Vasudeva Ghosh, all belong to Kashyap family. Govinda established the Gopinath temple in Argravdvip, where he resided. Madhava Ghosh was expert in performing kirtan. No one within this world could compete with him. He was known as a singer of Vrindavan and was very dear to Sri Nityananda Prabhu. It is said that when the three brothers performed Sankirtan, immediately Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda would dance in ecstasy, according to the Gora Ganadesha Dipika 188. The three brothers were formerly Kalavati, Rasulasa, and Gunta Tunga, who recited the songs composed by Srila Vishaka Gopi. These three brothers were among one of the 7 parties that performed kirtan when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu attended the Rath Yatra festival at Jagannath Puri. Prakeshwari Pandit was the chief dancer in their party. This is vividly described in Madhya Lila chapter 13, verses 42 and 43. So we know how huge this Rath Yatra is in Puri, and this was, I think this is the seven separate parties here described that Lord Chaitanya arranged. And these different parties, you had the dancer, you had the one who performed kirtan, the madanga, who played the madanga, who played the kartals. And a lot of we see in Gaur Leela emulates the Leela in Vrindavan. You know, it's the mood of separation. There's a lot of things that happen in Gaur Leela that are comparative to activities in Vrindavan. And we have these different groups here that are talked about. And similarly in Vrindavan, there are many groups of cliques or whatever you want to call them, of different Vaishnavas, specifically gopis, who perform Pacific services. And each one in each group has a Pacific service in that group. 116. Ramdas Abhiram was fully absorbed in the mellow of friendship. He made a flute of a bamboo stick with 16 knots. Abhiram was an inhabitant of Kula Krishna and Arga. 117. By the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the 3 devotees accompanied by Lord Nityananda, when he returned to Bengali to preach. These 3 were Ramdas, Madhava Ghosh, Vasudeva Ghosh, Govinda Ghosh, however, remained with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri and thus felt great satisfaction. 119. Bhagavat Acharya, Sri Nanjiva, Sri Raghulandana, Sri Madhvacharya, Kamala Kanta, and Sri Yadananda were all among the branches of the Chaitanya tree. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhashya, Sri Madhvacharya was the husband of Lord Nityananda's daughter, Ganga Devi. He took initiation from Purusottama, a branch of Nityananda Prabhu. It is said that when Nityananda Prabhu's daughter married Madhvacharya, the Lord gave him the village name Panjanagara as a dowry. Madhvacharya's temple was situated near the Jirat railway station on the Eastern Railway. According to the Gora Ganadesh Dipika 169, Sri Madhvacharya was formerly the gopi named Madhavi. Kamala Kanta belonged to the branch of Sri Advaita Prabhu. His full name was Kamala Kanta Vishvasa. 120. Jagai and Madai, the 89th and 90th branches of the tree, were the greatest recipients of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. These two brothers were the witnesses who proved that Lord Chaitanya was rightly named Patita Pavana, the deliverer of the fallen souls. Purport. In the Gora Ganadesh Dipika, it is said that the two brothers Jagai and Madai were formerly the doorkeepers named Jai and Vijay, who later became Hiranyakash and Hiranyaksha. Hiranyakashipu, Jagai and Madai were born in respectable Brahmin families, but they adopted the profession of thieves and rogues and thus became implicated in all kinds of undesirable activities, especially women hunting, intoxicating, and gambling. Later, by the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, they were initiated and they got the chance to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. As a result of chanting, both brothers became exalted devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The descendants of Madhai still exist, and they were respectable Brahmins. The tombs of these two brothers, Jagai and Madai, are in a place known as Goshhata and Madha Italagram, which is situated about 1 mile south of Katwa. It is said that Gopi Charna Das Babaji established a temple of Nitai Gaur at this place about 250 years ago. We discussed a little bit about this last time here, and it describes that Jagai and Madhai, that the greatest recipients of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and here it describes how as being the most sinful of individuals shows that how glorious Lord Chaitanya is the Patita Pavana, the deliverer of the most fallen. And as pointed out, there's like we have 4 regulative principles, and 3 of them we're talking about here: women hunting, intoxicating, and gambling. And these things, and meeting is not mentioned here because primarily in this culture even though there was some meeting, it was primarily in the civilized part of the society. This was not being done. But these things cause more havoc on society than any other behavior. And if you look at society today, it's just these things cause more disturbances in families and destroy families, which is an important part of society, to have a good family foundation that's based on a solid morality. And so when people in a family commit adultery, it destroys the family. When they, gambling oftentimes destroys family because it, oftentimes what's left is destroys all the, whatever wealth the family might have. Whoever's gambling uses that, and sometimes it puts a family into conditions of poverty. And also intoxication, and some of these things, like even abuse of families, intoxication leads to different types of abuse. And ultimately, these destroy families. And who suffers the worst are the kids. They're the ones that suffer. Instead of focusing on raising children who can be a productive part of a society, this type of activity creates mental issues with these kids who had to deal with these scars, emotional scars, when they become adults. And now we have a society that, so many people have a lot of emotional issues, and they have to seek out, different types of, health professionals in order to deal, counseling of different types. If they even recognizing themselves that they have some issue, they can easily reach out and try. And then we have all these huge number of people who are on these antidepressants and all these type of drugs, counteracting all these issues that were because of bad parenting. So here we have, of course, Jagai and Madai weren't. I don't think there was any indication that they were even married, But once they got the mercy of the Lord, it described that they were chanting 200,000 names a day. And so, fortunately, they got the mercy of Nityananda. There was this story just recently reading in the Chaitanya Bhagavat where this Brahmin, the Lord is on tour. He's just, he come to Jagannath Puri and he starts moving around the different villages around Jagannath Puri, and this one Brahmin approached him, and similarly like Jagai and Madhai, and he became a Vaishnav. But he said before he became a Vaishnav, he would see Vaishnavs and he would make fun of Vaishnavs. He would criticize Vaishnavs, and therefore he committed aparad to these Vaishnavs. And this was his practice. But now he became a Vaishnav. He felt guilty. But how does he deal with this guilt that he has because of his past behavior? Similarly to Jagat Madhai, they committed so many offenses, there's no way they could reach out and find all these people that they commit offenses to. There's no way they can get because typically if you commit some Vaishnava aparad, you should approach that person, especially if you know what it is, and get forgiveness. But this Brahmin was not able to do that. And so he approached Lord Chaitanya. How do I rectify this situation? So Lord Chaitanya told him that you should just glorify the devotees. You should compose songs and sing and glorify Vaishnavas. In general, you should always glorify them. And by doing that, you'll nullify all your past offenses that you have committed. Of course, Jagai and Madhai, they were told to build a ghat and serve the Vaishnavas. That's the way you could nullify all your previous offenses, if and also rectify the mood that you're feeling, this mood of guilt. So this glorifying the devotees is a huge important part of our sadhaka. And understanding to a point that actually glorifying the devotees is more important than glorifying the deities. A Kanista sees the difference. He sees glorifying the deities and doesn't recognize the value of Vaishnavas. But as you make advancement, then you understand that the value of a Vaishnav and worship of Krishna. Actually, Krishna likes to worship his devotees more than he likes to worship of himself. So this is extremely amazing part of our, because we can't make it without each other. We can't make it on our own. It's impossible. So we need this bhakti that everybody's practicing. This accumulated bhakti is a grace. It's also a form of Krishna's mercy. And we're always seeking out that mercy. We want to steadily make progress from, sadhana bhakti, bhajana kriya. We want to get to this position of nishta. Ultimately, we want to get to the position of bhava. But in order to get to bhava, we have to get to a shakti. We have to have some form of attachment. Before we get a shakti, we have to have some kind of taste. And before we have a taste, a full taste, we have to become fixed. So similarly, each of these steps are so important in practice. And without the association of devotees and the mercy of devotees, we won't make any of this, will not become possible. So this is very important here. Okay, so 121. I have given a brief description of the devotees of Lord Chaitanya in Bengal. Actually, his devotees are innumerable. This is why this is so important. We're reading this about this section here. It emphasizes the value of Vaishnavas and the roles they play to get us to where we're at today. We wouldn't be here without all this previous bhava and bhakti. 122. I have especially mentioned all these devotees because they accompanied Lord Chaitanya in Bengal and Orissa and served him in many ways. Purport. Most of the devotees of Lord Chaitanya lived in Bengal and Orissa. Thus, they were celebrated as Gaudiyas or Aryas. At present, however, by the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the cult is being propagated all over the world. And it is most probable that in the future history of Lord Chaitanya's movement, Europeans, Americans, Canadians, Australians, South Americans, Asians, and people from all over the world will be celebrated as devotees of Lord Chaitanya. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has already constructed a big temple in Mayapur, Navadvip, which is being visited by devotees from all parts of the world, as foretold by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and anticipated by Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And Lord Prabhupada here has already constructed a big temple in Mayapur. Not only did he understand things as it was, he understood things as it was going to be, you know. In Butler, he said, there's going to be many, the only thing to separate is time. He knew how this movement was going to develop. Even in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he talks about, we're going to get all these books, all these sandarbhas, all these literature, they're coming. You're going to get all these, he said, all these books are coming. Here we see now this temple is manifesting. 123. Let me briefly describe some of the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. When Lord Chaitanya goes to Jagannath Puri after taking sannyas, there was a bunch of devotees starts coming from different locations. They converged there. And this is what we're going to talk about here, these devotees. Ones who traveled with him from Navadvip, now we're going to switch to those who came from other locations. Among the devotees who accompanied the Lord in Jagannath Puri, two of them, Paramananda Puri and Swarup Damodar, were the heart and soul of the Lord. Among the other devotees was Gadadhar, Jagadananda, Sankara, Vakeshvara, Damodar Pandit, Thakur Haridas, Raghunath Vijay, and Raghunath Das. Purport. The Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adikanta chapter 5 states that Raghunath Vijay came to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when the Lord was staying at Panihati. He was a great devotee and had all good qualities. According to the Chaitanya Bhagavat, he was formerly Revati, the wife of Balaram. Anyone who glanced upon him would immediately attain Krishna consciousness. He lived on the seashore at Jagannath Puri and compiled a book of the name Sthana Nirupana. This idea that you just see somebody it would attain Krishna consciousness. And Lord Chaitanya describes this later. He's asked about who is a devotee, and he gives three answers. And then the final answer is, when you see this person, you think about Krishna. And it's in the Bhakti Ratnakara describes that if you saw somebody who saw Lord Chaitanya, you would attain liberation. And in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, I was reading, there's this festival of Madhavinda Puri, his appearance day. Lord Chaitanya comes to Dvaitacharya's house, and this is after he's taken sannyasi, and he actually had been to Jagannath Puri. And when he visits him, Madhavinda Puri's appearance day happens to come at that time, which is the Dvaitacharya's spiritual master. And so there's a description of this festival and then the importance of worshiping these festivals, these festivals throughout the year. Krishna's appearance day, all these different festivals are so important for the devotees to attend these festivals. And so Madhavinda, they described that also that when Mother Sachi, she came and cooked, that if you just saw the rice that she cooked for Lord Chaitanya, you would attain pure devotional service just by looking at the rice. And so they were getting this festival together for Mahavinda Puri, and they had the kirtan going on. And Lord Chaitanya decides to get up and just walk around and see the arrangement, what's going on, how the arrangements are being made for this festival. And he'd go into a room and he'd see rooms were just filled with rice. He'd go into rooms and they'd be filled with potatoes. He'd go into rooms and they were filled with saka. He'd go into rooms and they were filled with firewood. He'd go into rooms. This is Advaita Acharya's house. Rooms that were filled with spices, ready to be prepared to cook for this festival. And so in this way he was described that he was not just showing the glories of how important it is to glorify Mahavinda Puri, but who Sri Advaita Acharya is, to glorify him. That he's not a poor person. He's not he's the incarnation of Maheshwara, Shiva. He's very opulent. And so this way he would glorify. After he saw that the arrangements were very nice, he came back and he just sat down in the kirtan. So were the arrangements made, and then they had this feast was cooked, and then all the devotees partake in this feast. So this is the date. This is Krishna consciousness, prasadam, that we take prasadam, that things are done very nicely, that are prepared very nicely, and there's thought put in to the activities that we do. There's this thing that's called sankalpa. Sankalpa is our intention. Why do we chant Hare Krishna? Why do we come before the deities? Why do we perform this sacrifice? We have to formulate in our mind, what is our intention? What is the goal? What are we trying to achieve? These things are very important. Attaining goals are very important in Krishna consciousness. We talked about these different steps of Krishna consciousness. We want to get to the position of steadiness. So that's a goal. We have to achieve it. So we chant the Maha Mantra in order to become steadiness in Krishna consciousness. Or we chant the Maha Mantras because we want to attain ruchi, some taste, or a shakti, attachment. And ultimately we want to attain bhava, because then we can become a recipient of Krishna's mercy. So sankalpa is extremely important. Now in the Brihad Bhagavatam Lecture, Gopa Kumar got a special benediction. Sometimes your sankalpa doesn't come immediately. It comes on some future. It's not an immediate result. You have to work a little bit for it. You have to be some determination. So you make a vow, and then you have to have some determination in order to fulfill that vow. Sometimes it could be some obstacles that you have to overcome, and there's many obstacles that we have to deal with. Gopa Kumar was given some benedictions by his spiritual master. This was only in Jagannath Puri. And one benediction he was given, it was that whatever he achieved, whatever he formulated in his mind, whatever his sankalpa was, whatever his intention, he would get it immediately. He didn't have to wait on it. So whatever he desired, when he sat down, I'm going to chant this mantra, I'm thinking, this is what I want to happen, he would get it immediately. And then he also was given he was given 4 different boons to describe. He was also given the benediction by a spiritual master who was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so he could, he had a little bit of Shakti, so he could just bestow these on him. You can only give what you got. A bird can only fly as high as it can fly. That's what it's described. Vrindavan Das Thakur says, in Chaitanya Bhagavat, I can only explain to the limit of my ability, and that's all of us. And so we preach according to the limit of our ability. It's described. We can only, just like a bird, can only fly so high. So, the other boon he got, one of the other boons he got, was he had the right mentality in order to relish the fruit of this mantra. He'd be able to enjoy the fruit of that mantra. That way, having some power like that, you want to be able to have the right consciousness, that you don't misuse it. So he was given the ability, this boon, that he would always have the right mentality to enjoy the mood of his mantra. Of course, he was given the boon that he would always remain a Kumar, a boy, a Gopa Kumar, cowherd boy. He had that boon. So sankalpa with this sankalpa, he was able to continue his bhakti. Now, he was on the path of sadhana bhakti that he started. He went from his little Govardhan, where he was born. He left there. He went to some kingdoms. He went to Jagannath Puri. Eventually, he came back to Vrindavan. He was able to go to Goloka and meet the Lord there. He would go to Mahaloka, Gyanaloka, Tapaloka, Brahmaloka. So this is sadhana. Prabhupada talks about this in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we've mentioned this. There are two types of city, Kripa city and sadhana city, how you achieve perfection. And Prabhupada talks about this sadhaka city that you have to go systematically through these different planets. And you go to Vaikuntha. Kripa city is that you're given the mercy. It's like we talked about a plate. You can either give the plate of prasadam, or you can be given all the ingredients and the instructions to how to make that same preparation. The plate of prasadam is like Kripa city. You just give it to you and you eat it. And then the other was sadhaka city, that you have to achieve. If you follow the recipe, it'll be exactly the same result. So we have been given this mercy, and the reality of it is that we can actually, Prabhupada said, you can actually do it in one lifetime. It's achievable. This is the mercy of Prabhupada. Sometimes we can, and sometimes in humility, where you think, okay, this is going to take lifetimes, and it could take a couple of lifetimes, but we have to be careful not to fall into this idea that, okay, this is going to take lifetimes, because then what happens is the sense of urgency to become Krishna consciousness is lost. Oh, it's going to take me a lifetime. So this sense of urgency is not there. And this is very important that we have this sense of urgency, because this helps us maintain our Krishna consciousness. This sense of urgency helps us stay within the association of the devotees. So it's a very important part of Krishna consciousness, that we maintain this sense of urgency. So the mercy is that we've been given this mercy. Now, in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's both these examples of Kripa Siddha and Sadhaka Siddhi. Gopakumar was in the past of Sadhaka Siddhi, but he had this Brahmin who achieved Kripa Siddhi. He just came and met Gopakumar in Vrindavan, and then Vrindavan took him to Goloka Vrindavan. He didn't have to go through this whole process of all these different places that Gopakumar went. Not only did Gopakumar make it to Vaikuntha, but he made it to the Brahmajyoti. He made it to Lord Shiva's abode. And he had to come back. He made it to Ayodhya. He made it to Dwarka. And then he finally made it to Goloka Vrindavan. But because Gopakumar was a Rasika devotee at this time, he had the power just to take this Brahmin directly with him. He took so many people to help him to get along this process. You can see there were so many people to help Gopakumar. We have so many Vaishnavas that helped him. He had so many gurus that helped him, including his Diksha guru, who would occasionally, over a period of time, he would meet at different times. So a sense of urgency is something that we have to not become complacent about our practice. Sometimes we have, good days and bad days. Because as a sadhaka, sometimes the modes of material nature still affect us. But we have to compel ourselves to continue. Okay. Any questions? We'll just keep reading. 127. Well, Gopakumar, after he went to Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, then Radharani sent him, go get this Mathura Brahmin. Somehow this Mathura Brahmin got the mercy of Radharani. And in one lifetime, he became a devotee in one lifetime. He got this Gopal Matra from Durga. He traveled around the different temples. He saw different, Mayavadis. He saw different people. And even in dreams, he was getting instructions. He was hanging out with these Mayavadi sannyasis. I thought, well, maybe I should take sannyas. But then Lord Chaitanya came to him in a dream and told him, just get out of there. Are you crazy? Head to Vrindavan. That's what he told him. And then he saw some Vaishnavas along the way. And still at that point, he was a little bit confused about some of their practices. He didn't understand their chanting, and different ones were worshiping different. But he was fortunate enough that he had Radharani's mercy, and then she sent Gopakumar early in the morning. Instead of going out with Krishna, with the cowherd, which he would do on every day, he said, go to Brajabhumi. There's a sadhaka there, then bring him here. So that's the part 2 of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. How he was able to take it. He was already there. He had already got himself to a certain level of his practice. But then he got the mercy of the pure devotee. It's after hearing the whole Bhagavatam, and he knew he'd already perfected his japa. This is Gopakumar told him, your japa is perfected, but what you need also to do, and this is all the same instruction that Gopakumar got, you need to engage in Sankirtan, which is higher than just chanting japa. It's the next level up. You've got a congregational chanting. This is what you're going to need to help perfect your sadhaka. But then at the very end of it, Gopakumar actually had to reach out and just touch him. He was there. This energized this with his hand to this Mathura Brahmin. So that was Kripa Siddhi. He got it instantly. So two examples are shown there. But you can get it at any portion. Just like you have to go through, you can get, Krishna's mercy can come at any stage of one's sadhaka. It's like the Mathura got it. It's based on our seriousness. Even Gopakumar was like complacent with his japa at one point. He was doing deity service. He was doing different in the temple, and he would become lax and chanting his rounds because he thought, okay, this is more important. And so his guru told him when he gave him all these benedictions, he said, one thing, you cannot become indifferent to chanting your japa, because that's not different than worshiping the Lord. That's the essence of Lord. You can't think that deity worship is more important than your japa. That if I just the deities, don't have to do chanting. So the Lord told him, don't become indifferent. You always got to chant your japa, your mantra. You can't. That's going to compel you to. That's what compelled him through all the different layers of the universe, because they were all very. It compelled him past Svarga-loka. I mean, the heavenly planet is an amazing place. You've got to get through that if you want to go. It's very difficult. He was able to, by not being indifferent to his mantra, he was able to do that. Okay. All the devotees were associates of the Lord from the very beginning, and when the Lord took up the residence of Jagannath Puri, they remained there to serve him faithfully. All the devotees who resided in Bengal used to visit Jagannath Puri every year to see the Lord. Now let me enumerate the devotees of Bengal who first came to see the Lord at Jagannath Puri. 130. There was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, one of the biggest branches of the tree of Lord, and his sister's husband, Sri Gopinath Acharya. Purport. The original name of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was Vasudeva Bhattacharya. His place of birth, which is known as Vijayanarga, is about 2.5 miles away from Navadvip railway station, or Chanpahati railway station. His father was very much celebrated man of the name Maheshvara Vishrada. It is said that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was the greatest logician of his time in India. At Mithila in Bihar, he became a student of a great professor named Paksadhara Mishra, who did not allow any student to note down his explanations of logic. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was so talented, however, that he learned the explanations by heart, and when he later returned to Navadvip, he established a school for study of logic, thus diminishing the importance of Mithila. Students from various parts of India still come to Navadvip to study logic. According to some authoritative opinions, the celebrated logician Raghunath Srimani was also a student of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's. In effect, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became a leader of all students of logic. Although he was a grihastha householder, he even taught many sannyasis in the knowledge of logic. He started a school at Jagannath Puri for the study of Vedanta philosophy, for which he was a great scholar. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he advised the Lord to learn Vedanta philosophy from him. But later he became a student of Lord Chaitanya to understand the real meaning of Vedanta. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was so fortunate as to see the six-armed form of the Lord known as Sadbhuj. A Sadbhuja deity is still situated at one end of the Jagannath temple. Daily Sankirtan performances take place in this part of the temple. The meeting of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is vividly described in Madhya Lila, chapter 6. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wrote a book of 100 verses named Chaitanya Sataka, or Shushloka Sataka. Two of the verses he wrote, beginning with the words Viragya, Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yoga. This is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 6, 254. And Kalan Nashta Bhakti Yogam Nijam Ya are very famous among Gaudiya Vaishnavas. The Gora Ganadash Dipika 119 states that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was an incarnation of Brihaspati, the learned scholar from the celestial planets. Gopinath Acharya, who belonged to a respectable Brahmin family, was also an inhabitant of Navadvip and a constant companion of the Lord. He was the husband of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's sister, and the Gaura Ganadash Dipika is described that he was formerly the Gopi name Ratnavali. According to the opinion of others, he was an incarnation of Brahma. So we're going to stop right there. Text 130. We have Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was fortunate enough to, Lord Chaitanya told him, I came to Navadvip just to preach to you. He told Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that. That's the reason I'm here at Jagannath Puri, to make him a devotee. And he did. Brihaspati, that's the guru of the demigods. Okay, I think that's good. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga.